College bowl season is back, and we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a detailed focus on the Big Ten, the Mountain West, and all the bowls.
Hey, it's great to have you here on the mountain. We are doing our first live episode. I know we've got our producer in the background, P.W. Baker Productions. He's going to make sure this stuff looks fantastic. And of course, this is going to get recorded, so anybody that can't be live is going to see it as well. And you know what I just noticed, Steve? We're missing our sign.
Oh my goodness.
Let's do this.
This is live in action.
That's okay. Look, this is how we roll.
Yeah.
This is how low budget we are. And that's what happens when I'm running late. And it's back. So anyway, we're back. And anyway, let's get into the picks. Steve, I think we got some fantastic games here this weekend. We've got 6 Sun Belt teams, a conference that I really kind of got into more so than ever this year, was picking some of those teams. We've got 3 Mountain West teams, which is what I love, so I'm loving I get more Mountain West. We already had 2 of those. I'm 2-0 on Mountain West bowl games so far. Got them both right. We've got 2 teams from the MAC, 2 teams from the ACC, and just a few others as well, but a lot of Sun Belt teams. Let's start with Friday evening. Friday, we've got the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl.
Great.
And we've got the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, or the Ramblin' Wreck from Georgia Tech, playing the UCF Knights. Both of these teams coming into this game 6-6. Obviously, Georgia Tech from the ACC, and we've got the Big 12 with UCF. So let's start with you, Steve. What are you thinking about this game?
So first of all, before I pick the game, I just want to say, thank you to Chris. Welcome to Chris from the Trailhead Club.
Yep, absolutely.
Glad you joined us for our chat here. So looking at this game, I was looking at the game. I was breaking down the opt-outs, the changes. All teams this year have things going on. They're going to be losing people. They're going to be missing some people.
Right.
I really see this game as a coin flip. Okay, We've gone back to this before. These low point spread games. And when I look at them and I really think it could go either way. So I'm going to go ahead and take the point. So I'm taking Georgia Tech, the Rambling Wreck.
Yeah.
Plus 4.5 over UCF. Like I said, just taking the points. I think this will be a good game. I can see it going either way, so I'm taking the points. Georgia Tech plus 4.5.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. There's going to be a few games here that I'm going to struggle with. This one's one of those, maybe not the most that I'm struggling with, but I'm struggling with this one. 2 teams that have really good running games, very good running games. Georgia Tech has Haynes and King, the quarterback. UCF has Harvey, and Georgia Tech played really well down the stretch. If one of the teams is coming into their bowl on a high, definitely would be the Yellow Jackets. Their final game, 31-23 versus Georgia, really good showing there, and they showed that they can score some points, some big points. And I agree with you. We're going to agree on our first pick. I think it's going to likely be a closer game. I'm happy to get 4.5 with either of these teams. That team being Georgia Tech. So I'm taking the plus 4.5 with Georgia Tech. First one out of the gate, we agree.
Boom.
Let's go to the first game on Saturday. We have 2 noon games. Let's start with the 76 Birmingham Bowl. The 76 Birmingham Bowl. We've got the Troy Trojans, a team that I have loved this year. They come in Sun Belt 11-2 on the season, and they're playing an ACC team, the Duke Blue Devils, 7-5, a bit of an up and down season here for them. Both teams will not have their head coaches. They're off to different areas here. So let's start with Troy. I'm going to give you a couple thoughts on both teams. First, Troy. Huge fan of Troy. I love both sides of the ball for them. I think they have a very, very potent offense. I also think they have a very strong defense. Vital, their running back, we talked about him in the championship game and how he just went off with 5 touchdowns. Over 1,500 yards this season, 14 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. And Watson at quarterback, over 3,300 passing yards and 27 passing touchdowns. So they can do it on both sides. If Duke says they were going to try to stop the run in this Vital character, go for it, because guess what? Troy's going to throw it over your head. So that's where you get that 2-headed monster, really potent offense with the Troy Trojans. Let's look at Duke now. Obviously, no Leonard in this game. He's in the transfer portal. He's transferring.
Huge.
Massive, and last I saw, they could have up to 11 key players not being available for this game. It's interesting. I really checked the opt-outs of these teams, And I've seen some of these games and some of these teams, not necessarily Duke, but we'll get into some more JMU. That it sounds like some of these guys, even though they're in the portal and they're looking, they're actually willing. They want to play this game. Right. Now I think JMU's a bit of a special circumstance. We're going to get to that game, but yeah. So no Leonard and other key guys being out, but I am putting my money on the Trojan offense. I think they're going to be too much. And Duke just hasn't won this year when they allow 21 or more points. Yep. They have not won a game if they allow 21 or more points. I say the Troy Trojans will score at least 21 points. So I'm taking the Trojans minus 7.5. I'd love it at 6.5. But hey, I think the Trojans offense is going to roll here. So I'm on the Trojans minus 7.5.
Yeah, I'm hearing everything you're saying about Troy. For me, I focused a little more on Duke. It's a team I watched closely this year. They're just they were just a completely different team when they had Leonard, their quarterback.
Yeah.
They could beat anyone in the country at that point.
Yep.
With him. But, when they don't have him, they're just a completely different team.
Yeah.
Obviously both teams are losing their head coach. I just think that combination of losing their head coach, all the opt-outs, a lot of their best players, and without this quarterback, they're just going to be a shell of themselves.
Yeah.
And when we've seen that this year, they couldn't function. They couldn't do much. So I'm going as well. I'm going to take Troy to cover the 7.5 points.
Okay. All right. And I often find it interesting when you get, and this is the last year we're going to call a G5 program going against a P5 program. You've got to think that gives the G5 team a little extra boost to say, hey, let's go in here and show them we're not subservient to these P5 programs. We're just as good. So it should be interesting. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Are we good? Patrick, we're good. All right, just making sure everybody can hear us here. So let's go to the next one. Is it the Camellia
Bowl?
All right, I don't know how to say it. The Arkansas State Red Wolves, 6-6 from the Sun Belt. The Northern Illinois Huskies, 6-6 from the MAC. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to let you start on this one, Steve. What are you thinking?
Oh boy, you keep letting me start on these ones that are just kind of coin flips.
Hold on, let me see here. Okay, the one I really don't want to pick later on, I'll start with it.
Okay, all
so
right.
I'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, again, you look at the game, you look at the teams. Both teams, they have guys in the portal, guys that are looking to leave.
Yeah.
You look at their schedule, who they played, if they had any common opponents, how they did against other teams. I honestly just see this as just a straight up, it's just a coin flip. And so I'm going with Arkansas State to cover the 3. I wouldn't be surprised it would go either way. We decided to pick all the bowl games. So I'm going to go ahead and take, I always say a lot of times if it's a coin flip, I'll take the points.
Yeah.
I like Arkansas State slightly better. So I am going to go ahead and take them to cover the 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if this game went either way. It's not a game I would put a big, strong recommendation to bet on.
Agree. This is another one of the games where I'm like, I'm going to pick it because we said we're picking every bowl game, but this is not a game I would pick for any other reason, so I agree with you. Now, I do want to ask, you saw 3, I had it at 2.5, but you probably saw it more recently than I. Mine was, again, early afternoon.
Yeah,
so
just moved to 3. I checked the line about an hour before we started.
Then let me write in so I say the right number.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, so we got, let's start with the Northern Illinois. Somehow this team beat Ohio this year. By 10.
Yeah.
They won by 10 points.
In action. You never know
what's going to happen in action. And they also, at the beginning of the year, beat Boston College in overtime. So they do have a couple, you look at their schedule and go, wow, that team beat some decent teams this year. But other than that, really no other notable wins in the MAC. The MAC is the MAC.
Yeah.
They do have their top couple teams that they can compete elsewhere. They probably have the worst bottom half of any conference. So be that as it may, you'll hear me maybe mention that again. They're saying Rudolph, the wide receiver here for Northern Illinois, should play. I think he was a little bit questionable, and that would have completely turned the tides. I would have been all the way on Arkansas State, but he should play. They say their center though, their starting center is in the portal, so they're going to use a guy that really doesn't have many snaps. I've seen teams that have to bring in their backup center that maybe doesn't have a lot of reps. Yeah. It can be very difficult. Now, this guy's had practice weeks. It's not like he's coming off the bench during a game. Right. So, he is getting some reps there. And I know we've talked a little bit about history in bowls. And, does it matter? Does it not? But I'll tell you what, Northern Illinois 0-7 recently.
Yeah.
I remember I've been betting on them in bowls in the past, and they just crap the bed. They can't seem to get out of bed on these games. So let's look at Arkansas State. Really no notable wins other than their thrashing of Texas State on November 18th, which really surprises me because that Texas State team has a good offense, but they took it to them. But, with that said, I think Arkansas State playing in the Sun Belt is just the slightly better team.
Yeah.
I definitely think they have the better offense. I mentioned Rudolph. If Rudolph was out for Northern Illinois, this is an easy pick for me. It's not as easy with him playing or likely to be playing. But we're 3 for 3, Steve. We're agreeing on our first 3. I'm going Red Wolves -3 as well. I can't bet on Northern Illinois. I just can't do it. So let's go to the next one. The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, a game I'm really looking forward to. This is one of several we're going to get to now that I think are going to be really good games. The Air Force Falcons sitting at 8-4, a team that jumped out to an 8-0 start and then lose their last 4 games. I'm going to get to that here in a minute and why I think might change in this game. But then they're going against the James Madison Dukes, 11-1 in the Sun Belt. First season, I didn't know if they were going to be in a bowl. Actually, we're doubting they would. But because there's not enough bowl-eligible teams, that they get a game here, and I think they get a great game.
Yes.
When I saw this post, I went, this is fantastic. The Falcons versus the Dukes. So let me start with JMU. Obviously, they're missing Coach Signetti. I've heard he's taken several of his assistants as well. If it's just the head coach that goes, at least for the bowl game, and the assistants are still there, especially if he's not calling plays that much, and the assistants they have other coordinators, maybe not as big of a deal, but he's taking some assistants with him. A lot of their defensemen are in the portal. And that's huge because they had a stellar D this year. And McLeod, their quarterback, is also in the portal. However, I have been reading that many of these, including McLeod, is going to play in this game. How many is many? Is it all? Is it most? I don't know exactly. McLeod playing is huge for the Dukes. I mean, that's a really big game changer. But let me go to the Air Force Falcons here. As the Mountain West guy, I want to talk about the Falcons. So, and we talked about this at the end of the season. I think they just wore themselves out.
Yeah.
They're not as big as some of these other teams because they're a service academy. I don't want to repeat what we've said on previous episodes, but I think their style of play, their size, I think it just caught up with them by the end. I mean, they're losing to teams, Hawaii. So they're way better than that team, and they just couldn't keep up. They needed a break. They got a break. And I think this will be the team that we saw for the first 8 weeks of the season. That team that was 8-0, that team that were easily in the Mountain West Championship game, and they petered out. But they've gotten their break now. I have read that Zach Larrier will be playing in this game, and that was a huge turn too. I think it was a two-headed issue, one being smaller size players getting more out, and the loss of Zach Larrier was huge. He is a bit of that dual threat quarterback. He's not going to light the world on fire with passing, but he brings a passing game that is why they were lighting the world on fire on offense. I mean, scoring 40-some points a game as an Air Force offense, which is not like them. Eldridge is in the portal, so he's likely not going to play. But Michael Michelle, I think is how you say it, their leading rusher should be good to go. So they're going to have most of their boys ready to go. I think they're going to be healthy here. They're getting 2.5. I think it's going to be a great game. And this, maybe, Steve, this might be a bit of a homer pick by me. Red alert, possible homer pick. But I am taking the Falcons plus 2.5 points.
So I hear everything that you say about Air Force. With them getting some time, we've agreed they got wore down. We agree on that.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ready to say that the break was enough.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Larrier was injured earlier in the season, came back.
Right.
Was never quite the same guy. I'm pretty sure it was a knee injury. That's not one of those things that generally, unless you just bang it up a little bit, it's not one of those things that goes away with a few weeks of rest.
Right.
Generally. They were on such a down streak at the end of the season. I'm not ready to. There were other times where I said, okay, Air Force is back. They're coming back, and they let me down. So for me, I'm until I see it, I'm not going to believe that they're going to be back to the way they were for their 8-0 streak. On the other hand, on the other side of the ball, James Madison, yes, they lost their coach.
Yeah.
They got some guys in the portal. We'll see if they play. To me, James Madison was the most motivated team this year.
Yes.
They weren't supposed to get to play in a bowl game at all.
Yeah.
They fought and fought and fought, even though they were told all year you're not going to be allowed to play in the bowl game. You can't play in the postseason. They kept fighting. They had a great season all the way to the very end.
Yeah.
I think these kids are ready and motivated. I think you'll see a lot of the kids that are in the portal play in the game, and they're going to be there to win the game.
Yeah.
And I think they're healthy. They're rolling. They're on fire. They want to go out, and who knows where anybody will be next year, but they want to put a capstone on this awesome season that they had, where they basically made people take notice of them. They're in this bowl game, so I'm going to go with JMU minus 2.5.
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
I assumed that you would go with them. I just hope it's a close game.
Yeah.
So because of the end of the season, a little worried for Air Force. But again, I'm going to go back to they got Larrier. They're hopefully as healthy as they've been in quite a while. But I agree with you. If you want to know how much this game means to JMU and the players of JMU, look at all these guys that are in the portal and looking to go elsewhere. But no, we want to play in this game. That's all you need to know about. Does this game mean anything to them? Absolutely, it means something. Probably the safer pick, but I can't go against the Falcons.
Well, I will say, I will throw a little caveat on here.
Yeah.
If I would put this probably like 75% chance that I think JMU is going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if everything happens as you think it's going to happen with Air
Okay.
Force, if that were to happen, if they're back to the way they were,
Yeah.
and Larrier's good, Larrier's fine, everything is great, then in that case, I could see this just getting out of hand, like some of the Air Force games. So I think there's a small chance of that, but you could see Air Force winning, double digits, 20 points or more if they are back to full bore. I just don't think that's going to be the case.
Understand. I get it. Hey, while we're kind of in the middle here, let's take a brief timeout.
Okay.
I see we've got about 10 viewers, I think, on, and I want to take notice of something that I'm wearing. Or I want you to take notice.
Oh.
I've got my new Big Mountain shirt. Just came in the mail via our shop. I got her on. I got to mention it at least. I know you said Trailhead Club. Chris is on. He's got a hat, I think, from us as well.
All right.
So, hey, if you guys are on now, just put a little text in so we know who's on here with us. We do want to give a couple giveaways, or at least one giveaway, but I need you to get some comments in the chat so I know who's on right now. We'll pick somebody. We'll do a giveaway here in a little bit.
I like it.
Okay.
Can we do another thing before we start?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you're seeing here, so we got a message from Chris in the chat.
Yeah.
He's got a question. I'm going to read it.
Yes, okay.
And we're going to take our best at answering it. So
Okay.
Chris from the Trailhead Club says, knowing what we know now about the portal, what changes, if any, would you make to the process and how it affects the smaller schools with less money to compete for players? We just recorded an episode about this. It's going to come out. But I think we should, so he's here, we should give him a kind of a short answer.
Right. Okay, well, let me start by saying, Chris, great question. This is something that we actually are going to get an episode out on. Not so much the money side of things, but just the impact of, as we sit here today, Group of Five versus Power Five. Right. And how is that flow of players and student athletes moving from one to the other. So we're going to do an episode on that, and I don't want to give too much of it away. It's interesting you asked that question, but you're more specific asking about money compared to the two. So Steve, what are your thoughts, and then I can chime in too.
Well, so as far as the transfer portal, and so if you made me not only king for a day, so I could just make changes, but also you gave me a wayback machine, a time machine that I could go back and change some things. I would love to see the NCAA kind of adopt some of these rules a long time ago.
Okay.
So things could kind of settle in, and we wouldn't have had all these court cases. It would have been better if the schools would have figured out how to make this work instead of the courts basically forcing them on them.
Yeah.
Now, again, if I was the king and I could decide, I love the regionality of college football.
Yeah.
I am excited about as a Big Ten fan, I'm excited about the new conference, but I also do love the regionality of football. So if I could go back in time and make any decisions, I would have, put these plans in place so the players could move around, they could benefit, do all those things, but also use that as part of an agreement to kind of set some rules and set up a little bit of stability in college football, so we don't have this constant expansion. Is this team going here? Is this team going there? and so that we could have kept the regionality of college football, but also allowed, here's the thing, with this 4-team college football playoff, and even before that with the BCS, with only having 2 teams or whatever, we set it up so that the only thing mattered was the top 10, 4 to 10 programs in the country, which was stupid. I would have either just kept the old bowl system and had a a national championship game at the end, or gone to a larger and wider playoff. And I think that would have helped conferences, the Mountain West, the MAC, whatever, where they had a chance every year where their champion could play their way into a playoff. There's a lot of lessons that could be learned, but I can't be king for a day. We can't go back in time. But like you said, we're going to have that other episode talking about the old G5 and Power 5 and what we think the new model is and where things are going to go. And I am excited about the future of college football. I just hope, I really want to protect, since we started doing since you and I really started a few years ago, kind of sharing our information on the Big Ten and the Mountain West. I've really kind of adopted some of these smaller programs in the Mountain West, and they play great football out there. And I want to see a world continue where, and I'm excited about the 12-team playoff where they have a chance, maybe Boise next year. Whoever was the champion this year to play into a 12-team playoff. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and I will just add before we get to our next picks, we're going to get to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl pick next. I'll just add briefly, I think the money issue is here to stay. And for the schools that are all about development and developing players, and we talk about this a little bit in the episode that's going to come out next or tomorrow. If that's their goal is to develop players, and then they're fine, and they know that we're going to develop them for a year or two, and we would like to see them leave the nest and become a starting quarterback at Oregon, right? Or wherever. That's going to be part of this process. And, I think I would look at the players, not so much the schools maybe in my answer. And I think it swings both ways. I don't think the money swings both ways. The money's going to be at that upper echelon. But I think the ability to play swings both ways. And that's the tease for the episode tomorrow.
And so before we start, one more shout out. We see the Baker crew on there. There's a couple different Bakers on there, it looks like. So shout out to the Bakers. We see you.
And Squeezed Money. Ooh. I like that name.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Squeezed Money.
All right.
Here's what I'm going to do right now.
Okay.
Because I've never seen that, and I love that name. Squeezed Money. I'm getting you a TBM sticker. Send us an email, thebigmountain3, the number 3, thebigmountain3 at gmail.com. Send me an email. I want to get you a TBM sticker. Because you said hello to us and what's up, and because I think your name's freaking awesome.
That is.
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Georgia State Panthers versus Utah State Aggies. Both, again, 6-6. Sun Belt, obviously, for Georgia State. And Utah, another Mountain West team. Here I go with another Mountain West team. So, is it me? Do I start this one? No, you start this one.
I start. Yeah, I think
you start this one.
You took 2 in a row, so I'll take
I'm sorry. You go ahead. Yep.
All right. And this is good because I can keep anyone from suggesting you're a homer on this one.
Yes, please don't.
Both of these teams, Georgia State, Utah State, good seasons. They had up and down. There were some games they looked good, some games they didn't look so good. I'm going to go with Utah State here. Here's why. I don't usually care about the bowl locations. Doesn't really matter. However, this bowl, famous Idaho Potato Bowl, being up in the state of Idaho. Okay, so you have Georgia traveling there. You have elevation. Utah State, they play in the Mountain West. They're used to this. They probably have played in this stadium, I'm going to guess, before or near there. I think it's a pretty close matchup, but I think for Georgia State to have to travel all the way to that part of the country, you definitely see evidence of when teams have to travel multiple time zones, it can be rough. So I'm going to go with Utah State to cover 2.5 points and shield you from any homer considerations if you decide to pick them as well. But maybe you'll go Georgia State because you were on them a couple times this year.
I was on them a couple times. So let me start with Georgia State.
Okay.
On a 5-game losing streak to end the season, outscored 209 to 93.
Not good.
And I fortunately left them about middle of the year, and I let them be, thankfully, because they were getting rocked the second half of the season. They've struggled down the stretch. I think they're a good team, but they played a lot of the good teams of the Sun Belt in the second half of their season and just didn't stack up this year at all. Was a bit surprising. They still have a solid offense, as I said, and the Aggie D is okay. Actually, the Aggie D is slightly better. For those that have heard me talk, I was really down on that defense early on. They've actually played a little bit better than I thought. Still give up points, don't get me wrong, but they've held the games close enough so that the Aggie offense, which is really strong, can win the game for them. And that's kind of what's happened in Utah State. Top running back Carroll for Georgia State Panthers is in the portal. He was a beast this year for them. So let's get to Utah State. As I said, a serious offense. They averaged 34 points a game this year. For all 12 games, 34 points. As I said, they will put up points. They lost to JMU by 7 back in September 23rd. Only lost by 7. Hey, guess what? JMU, the best team in the Sun Belt. Right. We're talking about a Sun Belt team. They don't you can't necessarily go, oh, because of that game, that's what's going to happen here. But it is, it's a little telling. That's how well the Aggies played against the best team in the Sun Belt, and Georgia State's just an average team in the Sun Belt and struggling in the second half of the year. The QBs here are questionable. I have tried to find information, and this could be a game changer, and I think it's why the line is as low as it is. Hillstead, I don't think is playing. I think he's still injured. I've seen different reporting on Lagasse, whether he is or he isn't going to play. If you guys are on right now, and if anybody's a Mountain West fan and you have any information about the Utah State quarterback situation, please let me know, because I've seen two different things. One saying he's definitely not playing, and another thing looking like he is. It didn't say he was, but it alluded to that he would play. If Lagasse plays, 2.5, we're not locking any of these, but I would lock this. If he's in, they're going to smoke this team. So I'm with you. I'm taking the Aggies at -2.5. I think this, I hate to say it's easy. And again, the quarterbacks is the question. If I don't think Hillstead was, but if Lagasse plays, put your money on this game. -2.5 Aggies. Totally agree with you. 68 Ventures Bowl. The South Alabama Jaguars versus the Eastern Michigan Eagles. The game I want nothing to do with.
Okay. You want me to call it first?
I don't care about this game.
Okay.
And I found this game extremely hard to pick a team. Because the line is not small.
Yes.
So, why don't you go first?
Okay. So here's the deal. There is no doubt in my mind that South Alabama is the better team. You look and see who they played. Look at their roster. They got more talent on their roster, up and down. They're the better team, okay? However, I was looking at Eastern Michigan, and every article I would read, the quotes and everything, they are so darn excited to be going to a bowl game. This is such a huge line, 16.5 points.
It's big.
Yeah, these bowl games are crazy, and we've seen it where a team that was heavily favored just went and destroyed the other team. I always go back to these bowl games. I think a lot of it comes down to who's motivated, who really wants to win, who is mentally checked out and ready either for next year or for, what NIL deal they're going to get or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and take Eastern Michigan plus the 16.5. I think they'll play with pride. They'll keep it a little bit closer. I don't think they'll win. I think South Alabama is just too good for them. But I'm going to take Eastern Michigan plus 16.5.
And I totally get that. I was kind of there. And went, just take the points. Take the points. That's a lot of points. But Eastern Michigan's not good.
They aren't.
So I am not taking the points. Okay. I am going to take the Jaguars, our second game that we're going to disagree, because we've been pretty agreeable here this evening. I'm going to take the Jaguars at -16.5. As you said, they're the better team. Now, are they the better team by 16.5 points in a bowl game? I don't really know, but I'm going to go with the better team, which I believe is South Alabama. And they have very few transfers. They have a solid offense. The Eastern Michigan team is going to be missing their quarterback, Smith. Their wins came against, they have 6 wins, but they basically came from the worst FBS schools in FBS overall. So again, that's great. They were 6-6. I'm glad they're all gassed up about it. But there's one 6-6 team, South Alabama, that is a good football team. Not okay, good. Team. And then there's Eastern Michigan that ekes into a bowl. I wish them the best, but I'm taking the Jaguars.
All right. It's just going to come down to that margin.
It is going to come down. I agree.
Do they keep their players out and
we'll find out.
Michigan get some kind of crazy fat guy touchdown at the end? Who knows?
So hey, we got the two the Power 5 game next, right?
Yes.
2 teams from the Power 5. We've got the SRS Distributions Las Vegas Bowl, the Utah Utes at 8-4, and the Northwestern Wildcats at 7-5. You want me to take it since this is a Big Ten team?
Yeah.
So both of these teams have been really good against the spread this year. Both of them. And Northwestern, you got their hat on here. We talked about they were getting points at the end of the season. They said, I don't need it. I don't even need forget beating the spread. Yeah. They're winning the game straight up, for Pete's sake.
They got the coach of the year.
They're feel good. They've done really good things. I'm really happy for them. I really question their offensive line here against a Utah defense that is stout. Really strong defense. And positively for Northwestern, Utah doesn't score a lot.
Right.
So if they can keep this game close, they've got a decent chance here. But the Utes have a fantastic defense. They played some of the most powerful offenses. I mean, they played Arizona, Oregon, Washington, and they held up okay. Northwestern is not one of those offenses. Decent offense, and I will say Northwestern's like to throw the ball a little bit more, and that's a little bit of the Utah's better against the run than they are the pass. So if you wanted to be Northwestern and have a strength on offense, you would want it to be a passing game because the Utes' passing defense isn't quite as good. Their D line and their running defense is really good. 5th against the rush, and 64th against the pass. The Utes I'm talking about. I just think the defense with the Utes is just going to be way too much. I think the defensive line for the Utes is just going to dominate the line of scrimmage against the Northwestern offensive line. So I am going to take the Utes minus 6.5.
So, so this is going to be another opportunity for us to go our separate ways and see who can take the lead over the other.
Okay.
I'm going with Northwestern.
Okay.
The line is plus 6.5. They're getting 6.5 points. Utah this year, solid. If you look at their run last 2 or 3 years, and including this year, solid team. Great coaching. Like you said, really solid defense again this year.
Yep.
They were just not the same team this year offensively with their quarterback being out now Cam Rising.
Yeah.
Ended up missing the whole year. There were thoughts he could come back at different times. He is coming back for next year. So if you're a Utah fan, I definitely feel good about next year, but I wouldn't feel so good about this bowl if I'm a Utah fan. Northwestern they have been on a tear, going through some good competition in the Big Ten. Played well. They can beat you both ways. Their passing game and their running game. If they were just old school a few years ago, just to run the ball, and that was the only thing they could do, I would say Utah is going to have the advantage. I don't see Utah scoring very many points in this game. I think Northwestern's D is solid enough to hang with them.
Okay.
And I think Northwestern, their balanced offense with their passing game, I definitely see them putting up more points than Utah. So not only am I going to take Northwestern plus the 6.5 points, I'm going to say out there, I'm not usually a money line person, but if you see a good deal on the money line, I'd even be interested in taking that. So my pick officially is Northwestern plus 6.5. I think there's a good chance that they're going to win this game outright.
Okay.
So again, for our viewers, if you can get a good deal on the money line, that's something you're into. This might be a good money line play for you.
Well, they hit the last 3.
Yeah.
So and at 6.5, I don't know what the money line is. I don't really look at them. But you got to think it's a pretty decent return right there.
Yeah.
You gave it away with your hat.
Yeah.
I appreciate you wearing that.
Yeah.
But and we did get a squeeze money says Barnes is out. No Barnes for Utah. Give him the Wildcat. So we got another guy jumping on the Wildcat train. I just look at it, and like I said, I like the defense for the Utes, and I look at who they played throughout the season, and if they bring the same teams that they were, doesn't mean they are. Obviously, they're missing some players, but I just like the Utes overall better. But nothing wrong with I would love to see the Wildcats win straight. Honestly, if the Wildcats win straight up again, I'd love it because I jumped on them a while back. So
you've been consistently strong on Utah, and they've performed well for you over the last 3 years. So.
That's true. And I didn't pick them much this year. I would tell you, I'm thinking about Utah, and then they go ahead and cover the daggone spread, but I didn't actually make the pick. But
they were such a crapshoot this year because of that offense. That's the thing. That offense is limited this year.
Hey, we want to give a shout out. Steven is on. How's it going? It's going great. We're doing our first live broadcast. We appreciate you coming on. He was one of our first subscribers.
Yes.
Awesome subscriber. He gives us comments on just about every episode that we do. Really knowledgeable and a lot of college football stuff. We appreciate you, Steven. Thanks for jumping on.
Love interacting with him in the comments and the chat.
Yeah. Every comment he puts is great. Nice little back and forth interaction there. The other thing I want to say is if you are on, I see we have about 11 or 10. I know we already gave one of these to Squeezed Money. If anybody else is on, Steven's already gotten one.
Yeah.
Chris from the Trailhead's already gotten one. But if you're on and you're interested, we're giving away TBM stickers. If you want one, make sure you put a little message into the chat. We'll make sure we get another one out here for you. Squeeze Money got one earlier tonight. So what's up?
So before we pick our last game, I think we should take another question here.
Okay, a question.
Chris from the Trailhead Club, he's got another question, and I have to answer this question.
Oh, this is for you, Steve.
This is for me.
This is for you.
Okay, so Chris's question is, no matter what happens in the playoffs, win or lose, does Harbaugh leave Michigan for the NFL? Well, here's the thing. We've covered Harbaugh extensively this year. The dude is a weird cat, okay? He just is.
He's a weird Wolverine.
Yeah, no, whatever he is, he's a strange dude, okay? Fantastic football coach. He's won at every single level.
Yeah.
Turned Stanford back into a powerhouse, had the Niners in the Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, just amazing coach, has turned Michigan around.
Yeah.
We're going to, who knows what's going to happen with this investigation. It's going to take its time to play out. So they, the last 2 or 3 years, he's flirted with the NFL.
Yeah.
His big thing, he's a Michigan man, okay? He wanted to come back and restore Michigan.
Not to be confused with a Michelin.
No, not a Michelin
I'm
man.
becoming a bit of a Michelin.
I hear you.
But anyway, sorry.
No, not the
You're
Michelin
being
man.
serious and I'm goofing around.
No, but he is a Michigan man. And his desire was to come back to Michigan, take them back to where they always where he feels they should have been, back-to-back Big Ten champions.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I guess three-time now, back-to-back Big Ten champions.
Big Ten.
Yeah,
All the same.
now back-to-back in the college football playoff. They're the number 1 ranked team.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens in this. I have said earlier in the season that I think that this is the last year Jim Harbaugh will coach.
Yeah.
At Michigan, I stand by that. I think he wants to go back to the NFL. And no matter what happens with the investigation and whatever we think our opinions of the cheating scandal, whatever, or Chris, no matter what your opinion is of that, I think the Michigan fans and Jim Harbaugh himself look at his time there as a success. They came back, they beat the crap out of Ohio State.
For sure. Yep.
They won the Big Ten, whether that gets taken away or not. And I think he's just going to be ready to move on back to the NFL. And I think it'll make things smoother and easier for the school as they move forward. Now, there's all this talk about a contract extension and all that. I really think that's the school and the fan base, the boosters, the board, the donors, their way of showing they support Harbaugh and are not ready to dump him.
Yeah.
But if I had to flip a coin, I'm a betting man. I'm saying Harbaugh will be gone. Will be in the NFL next year.
Okay. All right. And guess what? Our buddy Steven, he agrees with you.
Okay.
He thinks Harbaugh is going to return to the NFL one day too. So, Steven knows his stuff, and
Chris does.
Chris says I'm leaning that way too, Steve. So we got the trifecta of Harbaugh going back to the NFL.
The Bakers typed a message and they deleted it. So I don't know if they had some salty words for old Harbaugh.
Oh my
or maybe they had
gosh.
salty words for me. I don't know.
Careful out there, everybody. All right, let's get to the last one here. We've got the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl. I think the first bowl that got announced before all the other ones. We've got Coastal Carolina versus San Jose State. Coastal Carolina, another Sun Belt team. I said starting early. We got 6 Sun Belt teams. We're getting rid of them all this week. It's crazy. But anyway, Coastal Carolina versus the Spartans. Coastal Carolina has, the last I looked, which was earlier today, in the website I was looking at, 24 opt-outs. The most of any team that we've done so far, at least that I can remember. 24 players opting out. They do have good wins against Appy State, Texas State, Old Dominion, and early in the season, Jacksonville State, who won their bowl game just a couple days ago. Their losses were to Army towards the end of the season and a complete blowout to JMU, at the last week. Their star quarterback, McCall, is transferring to NC State. They still have a pretty good O overall, but that's a lot of players to be losing and opting out. Obviously, it's not 24 starters, but a lot of players that they're losing. Let's talk about San Jose State. I should have let you go first because I'm a homer, Mountain Wester, but that's okay. I'll give some of my homerness out here.
Well, why don't you do your review and then let me pick the game first?
Okay, all right. So when I give my overview of San Jose State, you know where I'm going to be picking.
We'll see.
But okay. So I was big on this offense from the beginning. Some people are probably tired of me saying that, but I was. And really, they didn't disappoint. Little wavy in the beginning, but when they hit the Mountain West schedule, ay caramba, just blowing people away. Cordero, the player I knew he would be, fantastic season, but the player that really stood out to me was that running game in Robinson. Ay caramba, you got a great pass game, a great run game. Your offense is clicking right now in San Jose State. They're on a 6-game winning streak, including wins against UNLV, Fresno State, San Diego State. You got San Diego State, but they got better as the season went on. Their record isn't good, but and they underperformed where we thought they were going to be, but still a solid team, a very good defensive team. And their defense creates turnovers. So if you have an offense that can put up points the way San Jose State can put up points, and a defense that can hold their own and create turnovers to give it right back to your offense, it's going to go down and probably score a touchdown. Good things are going to happen. So I'm going to withhold my pick, and I'm going to let you chime in and pick this.
All right, so I absolutely love the San Jose State offense. The very first game we saw them play against USC, and we weren't sure, hey, is their offense good, or is this more of USC's defense being terrible?
Yeah.
Probably a little bit of both,
Yeah.
but I think it gave us some good indicators. They did stumble a little bit early in the season, but finished so strong. Offense just rolling against some of the better teams.
Yeah.
I think that ultimately the Mountain West Championship game, I think they got it right. I think the two best teams were in it. But I can totally see why San Jose State fans, the players, everybody thinks they should have been in that game, in that Mountain West Championship game.
Yeah.
They think they should have won that game, been in the game, won it, and be playing in they should have been playing in that
the LA Bowl.
LA Gronk Bowl. Gronk with his WWE belts. That they should have been there. Yeah. So I think they're motivated. I think they want to take this out on somebody, and I think they're a lot better team than Coastal Carolina.
I agree.
I cannot believe the line is only 9.5. Like you mentioned, we're not going to do locks, but for me, if we were doing locks, I would lock this game. So I love San Jose State minus 9.5.
Yeah, and let me just say before I get on to my pick, I was a little concerned for that poor little lady that was interviewing Gronk at the LA Bowl.
Gronk!
I thought he was going to pick her up and take her up to his hotel room, and I'm like, oh, good Lord, hold this man back. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic.
Young people in Los Angeles having fun.
You never know what's going to go on. And that guy, he's a little.
Yeah,
he's a little.
He likes
maybe
fun.
A lot of.
He likes that fun.
But anyway, let's get back. I'm with you. The Spartans, minus 9.5. Love the line. I agree that they're going to come into this and say, you left us out of the bowl we should have been in, and sorry, what is it, Chanticleers? I don't know how you say that.
Yeah.
We're going to roll over you.
Yeah.
We're going to demolish you in Hawaii and then go party on the beach.
Right.
And also, you've got Coastal Carolina going the whole way across country and then down to Hawaii versus San Jose State just going to Hawaii. You know how much I've talked about that wild card that Hawaii has. With teams in the Mountain West having to travel there, and there's always these couple weird games. Did some of that play into the Air Force game late in the season?
Sure.
Maybe.
And there's a good possibility maybe up to half of the San Jose State roster has traveled to Hawaii before. They've done this before.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm with you. I mentioned one earlier that I really kind of liked as a lock, and I'm with you here. We're not locking it, but I love this line. I think the offense here is going to go bonkers on Coastal Carolina. So that is all of our picks. This was fantastic. Let's get back to see if we have any other commenters here.
So we have a couple questions about where we might think Harbaugh could go. Which NFL team? Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so there's definitely speculation. Bill Belichick, whether that he could be on his way out. They just haven't done well there. Could I see Harbaugh fitting in there? Yeah, he's a strong personality.
Yeah.
Just like Belichick, kind of a strange guy. They do have a certain way of doing things in Patriot land up there that I'm not sure if he could get on board with or not. But he's a fantastic coach. If they could make it work, I think that'd be a good spot for him. The other one, someone mentions, who was it? Was it Steve or was it Chris? Someone mentioned the Chargers
Yes.
The Chargers.
Chris mentioned maybe the Chargers.
Yeah, they have what's his name, Herbert.
Yes.
The quarterback
Justin.
there, Justin Herbert, played at Oregon. Was a great rookie at San Diego with the Chargers when they were in San Diego. The Chargers, now they're up in LA. Very talented guy. I think he could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. What is Jim Harbaugh's history, especially when he was in the NFL? Working with quarterbacks, developing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I think that could be a great match.
Yeah.
I could see that. Honestly, you could almost any NFL team, and you got to separate Harbaugh. Whatever happened in the scandal at Michigan, whether it was in the rules, whether it wasn't in the rules, whatever. You got to separate the coaching ability, and he has that proven track record, that proven coaching ability. Now, he has a shelf life of about 4 years, and he starts to stink if people want to get rid of him. But I could see him going to any NFL team, and I do like that matchup there. Him going to San Diego, working with Herbert, that could be really good for his development.
Yeah, great. I don't have many comments because I don't follow Michigan like you do.
Right.
I'm not a big NFL guy either.
Right.
I used to be, not so much anymore. So whatever you say, I completely agree with.
So your team is the Commanders, okay?
Yes.
And their coaching situation is an open question.
Well, I was going to say,
Ron Rivera, what would you think if you saw that news? Boom! Breaking news: Jim Harbaugh, next coach of the Washington Commanders.
Well, I would hate that, but there has been smoke that Belichick may be going to the Commanders. So if Belichick goes there, does Harbaugh go to New England? I don't want to get into the NFL. It frustrates me.
Okay, we won't talk.
But you gave him the answer you were looking for, and so Steven says he wishes he would love to go to Hawaii. He also agrees with us on the San Jose State covering over Coastal Carolina here. So with that, I think we're going to wrap things up. We really appreciate some of our subscribers being on here. Shout out to all you guys. We appreciate it. We'll do another one of these again. This was fun.
Yeah.
Remember, we are going to be picking every bowl game this year. And tomorrow, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, on Wednesday, we're going to drop a episode regarding the transfer portal and players maybe moving from Group of 5 to Power 5 schools and what that means for Group of 5 schools, and as we've been calling them, other 8 schools. So we'll get that one out here tomorrow. With that, do you want to sign off? You want me to sign off?
Yeah, go ahead. You take us out.
All right. Hey, we thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.